evening and welcome to the November 1st, 2017 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Let's see, I will just mention a reminder to please turn off your devices while you're in the room. I think that's it. Everybody knows the rules. So the first order of business is to vote on the minutes of October 25th. Does anybody have
I
any?
didn't see any issues with them. I move to accept that.
Second.
Written.
All right, any other comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Continued requests for determination of applicability. Sherry and Charles Way, 12 Clarabelle Road, East Falmouth, for permission to vista prune, trim trees near the house, and remove trees.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any comment from the board, from the public? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Next, we have continued requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Okay, so our one hearing, NOI hearing tonight is William Solomon, 58 Cape Codder Road, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing dwelling and construct a single-family 3-bedroom house with an attached garage, covered patio with deck above, patio with stairs, install a new Title V sewage disposal system, utilities, retaining wall with rails, fresh stone driveway, drainage leaching pits, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Evening, Tom.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Tom Bunker, BSS Design. I was here 3 weeks ago with the plan, sent home with a few things to do.
I'm sorry, just as a formality, I'd like to interject that the quorum consists of everybody up here at the table.
So one detail I was missing from the plan before, the existing trees. There are about 7 trees on the property that are worth mentioning, maybe 8 trees. So we've shown them on the plan, on the existing conditions plan, and there are 5 trees being removed. They're the ones that are marked in orange on this plan. There's a willow tree here, 3 cedars, and a cluster of a cherry tree, black cherry. So we show those trees. We show the ones to be removed. One tree that would have been removed in the old plan, but I changed the limit of work and moved the septic tank. Is this honey locust in this location? So I moved the septic tank over about 5 feet and made the limit of work jog around it right in this location here, so that tree can be, I had a play on words here for the botanical name of the honey locust and the size of it. But I won't get into that unless somebody wants to hear it. But in exchange for cutting down some of these trees here, we're planting 6 cedar trees. No, I'm sorry, 8 cedar trees. 8 cedar trees, really along this property line with the right-of-way, and 2 here, 6 along here, and 2 here. Basically, where the 2 trees are cedar trees are being removed, and adding 550 square feet of native shrubs in this location. It's not as many square feet of vegetation as coming out, but what's coming out is on this side, further from the resource area, and it's all non-native, some shrubs and some perennial flower beds and all in there. but we're adding 550 square feet of native shrubs closer to the resource area. And it's in a somewhat sheltered area. It's downhill from the top of the bank, so it's sheltered from the wind. And I think they should do well in that location. Changed the drainage. Before we had a leaching catch basin in the driveway in this location. I've now moved it so that it's into the roadway, being a private road. It's owned by the applicant. So that catch basin, added a solid catch basin with a solid sump, and then the drainage will be piped to the leaching pit. As I described before, these are quite large. We had two, one stacked on top of the other to get down to the good soil. It's like 13 feet deep to get down to the sand layer down there. So they have a lot of volume. We submitted drainage calculations that show that there's more than enough volume and leaching capacity. One basin, one leach pit system here for the house, and one other one down there. We did calculate runoff from partway up the hill and then down, that's pavement down to here, and then a crushed stone surface. And the drainage calculations show that there is more than enough capacity in that pit for the runoff from the road and driveway. The retaining wall that we had here was about 5.5 feet high, but I've broken it down into two separate tiered system where the lower wall is 2.5 feet high and a 5-foot wide space there to be used for a lawn or planting, and then a 3-foot high wall there, so there's nothing gets above 4 feet. And noted that the air conditioning, which would normally be on a, in the case of a house in a flood zone, might be on a platform. There's already this balcony kind of on the first floor, elevation 24, and below it there'll be another lower deck about 6 feet down. The air conditioning can be mounted on that platform there. We did submit the 1975 aerial photo. It's hard to see, but I believe it does show the stairs and the deck going down the riprap slope toward the ocean. This house has been in the Fine family since the previous owner, who just sold it, been in their family since 1967. These show on the 1975 photo. But that also has to do with there's no history of licensing. It was actually in 1975 on that photo. I think that the high water line did not even touch this riprap, so there was no need for licensing back then. It does touch it now, but as is thought to be the case, this riprap is not owned by Salamini. If it were to be licensed, it would have to be licensed by the owner, which is, I believe, Salt Pond Bird Sanctuary, not Mr. Salamini. It was mentioned last time that there would be no rebuilding of it, but again, if it's on somebody else's property, he wouldn't rebuild it anyway. And the house is being moved 30 feet back from the bank than the existing, so that's quite an improvement, and certainly a good safeguard against any erosion of that bank. I believe this project is a benefit, one, because it's moving back to the bank, moving out of the FEMA flood zone, moving away from the property line here and thus away from the resource area, adding native trees and shrubs closer to the resource area. That's what I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jen?
So Tom, you're saying that photo you submitted shows the deck and the stairs?
I believe so, yes.
you believe it shows it.
I believe
To
it.
like
Well, that's the photo
glean
I
from
have.
left. Okay, it's not on Mr. Solomini's property, so if that deck and staircase ever need to be reconstructed, they're gonna need the permission of the property owner. They may not get it, so I'm just throwing that out there. They're going to need permission from the property owner. I'm not
Yes.
making any determination with this order that that staircase is legal, okay?
Right.
Okay, I'm just making that
I
clear.
can throw out there that also, in the past 42 years, they probably gained prescriptive rights to use that for that use. And I agree.
I'm not even going into that, I'm
I'm
just
not
saying
either.
you're going to need permission from the
Yep.
property owner for
Or
a
something.
legal opinion,
Right.
yeah, so.
Yep.
But I'm not gonna get into that, I want permission from the property owner. And that's it, everything else was checked off, so.
Yeah. Thank you. Start. Courtney?
No questions.
Maury?
I just had a couple. There were no sizes of the trees, and it's really hard to determine. You're giving us 9 cedars, which we have no size of those either. So what you're taking away and what you're giving us, there's no way we know if we're winning or losing. So we always request and require the size of the trees
Mhm.
over 4-inch DVH on the plan. And
The,
you were nice enough to go back and put the trees on the plan, but you failed to give us the size of the trees on the plan, as well as the size of the 9 trees you were planting. That's number one. Number two, all the plantings, the trees, and the mitigation planting all appear to be tucked tightly against the right-of-way. And I think that we usually like to see them closest to the resource, which would be along the coastal bank.
Well, there is coastal bank on that side, that's what I'm saying, they're closer to the resource area.
Well, okay, that's,
I can't believe that that was your answer.
I know.
I was waiting for somebody to go there.
They're closer to the resource area than the trees that are being taken down.
To the critical resource areas that would be affected by runoff, like Buzzards Bay?
Well, the runoff, goes land.
Well, it does go landward, and whoever's back there has to deal with it. Ultimately, we're worried about Buzzards Bay and shellfish habitat and
Right,
et cetera.
Right, there's no runoff going toward Buzzards Bay, and there's also, this is the coastal bank also, right
Right.
here.
Wraps around.
But if you had a storm, you would be happier if you had trees buffeting.
If there was a storm.
waves coming through
If there
there.
was a storm big enough to take down that riprap wall, a few trees there wouldn't make any difference.
Again, that's your answer?
Yes.
Well, and again, I'm gonna go back to the size and the size. So I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, what it is. But.
Say the trees, I thought I had it somewhere, the proposed trees are the typical, 6 to 8 foot tall trees, which are cedar trees or
Tom,
what?
we have done caliper inch for caliper inch on this board for, I don't know, maybe I'm getting really blonde and
Since
old,
at
but
least
for a long time.
2008.
But, yeah, 2008.
That's one of your criteria, yeah.
Yes, it is. So,
The other
again,
is tree for
we want to
tree.
get home early, you want to get home early. The reason we go through these meetings and we have these discussions is because the plans are not complete.
Wait a second, let me address that.
Wait, I wanna know-
It's between tree for tree and caliper inch per caliper inch. How can we get an in-between if we don't have both sides?
Well, you have one, I mean, the caliper inch.
Well, we know that. We know we have it now.
You visited the site, right? I mean, the cedar trees coming down are, maybe 6 inch.
And the ones you're gonna plant?
On a caliper, well, I don't know if they really talk about cedars in caliper, they usually talk about in height. A 6 to 8 foot cedar tree is, maybe 2 inches. That I don't really know.
And I bet you none of us know it either, and that's why you should put it on the plan so we would all know.
Well,
And
what
it
I'm
would be
saying
very
is,
helpful.
as far as I know, cedars are sold by height, 6 to 8 feet. Unlike deciduous trees, are sold by caliper.
Right. But if you know that you're taking down a 6-inch caliper cedar tree that's existing, then you find the height that is appropriate to the same size.
If it's tree for tree.
Anyway, that was just one of, that's why we just spent almost 5.5 minutes on something that should be on that plan.
Next.
And I'm gonna move on because I'm done beating that horse, but usually we would like to see that the lawn removed down by the coastal bank with a buffer put there with a mitigation planting. That's pretty normal that we ask for. Other than that, your plan and your drainage was a great improvement. Thank you.
Betsy?
I have no further comments.
Jamie? Peter?
No questions.
Kevin? Mark?
Courtney, give me your plan.
It looks like you
Courtney,
removed the
plan.
pavement from the driveway, and you placed it with gravel, and then you put a rather substantial leaching pit down at the foot of that.
Yes.
Presumably the impact of all this is to collect and capture any runoff from the back of this property. I would think that that would address a lot of the issues some people had in the past about some flooding down at the base from this property or any other property. Maybe we ought to come back with another plan. Not this one, the other one.
On the other one, yes.
I mean, it looks like
As I said, I
you're really
calculated
capturing all the runoff we're planning to capture everything.
there's a
on
high
this
point
property.
up in Cape Cod Road, just a couple lots up.
Yeah.
And so I took it from there down, all the runoff, not from any driveways, but just for the road itself, in the drainage calculations.
Just as an aside, in that drainage calculation, you had a C of 0.6 for the gravel. What's C of the,
That's the answer.
whatever is going to be on the hill over the septic tank?
Yeah.
What's going to be up there? Is that going to be grass?
That'll be some type of vegetation, usually for a vegetated area, it's 0.4.
So it's less than gravel.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any issues though.
Okay. Mark? Motion?
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
All right. We have some folks in the audience who want to speak. Arthur, please. Come on.
Is that this one?
We can pass them down if you like.
Whoops. No, I'd rather present them personally.
All right, thank you. You gave me two.
Good. Because I was thinking I didn't have one for Jan. You don't want to make that mistake. Is there one extra there?
Yeah, there you go.
So I was actually give one to. This is a extra one.
Susan, can
Arthur?
I- I'll just
There's
say
another
which
one.
extra one. I need one.
No.
I'll give it to you on
The name is Arthur Gaines, 61 Haynes Avenue, Falmouth. I'm also the president of the SIPWIS Association, with a membership of about 150 families. SIPWIS Association was founded in 1969 and organized under Chapter 180, Massachusetts General Laws, as a nonprofit organization. And our objective is to protect and foster mutual benefit interests of landowners in the SIPWIS region of the town of Falmouth. The SIPWIS subdivision, in which this lot, in fact both of the Salamini lots exist, lot 94 and lot 110, lies within the SIPOWISIT subdivision, which is one of 14 housing clusters or organized subdivisions within our bailiwick. I'm going to make this short. I'm not going to go through this whole list of materials, but I wanted to submit it for the interest of the Concom. The plan for the SIPOWISIT subdivision shows 193 lots in 135 acres. And the plan was put together by Harrison House in 1897. And the plan includes a network of roads of common lands, of access roads. And I want to emphasize, although it must be obvious, that the coherency of these roadways is very important to all of the landowners and provides access by vehicles, utility corridors, and has a profound effect. The coherency and survival of this road plan has a huge effect on the value of properties there and also on the quality of life, because the plan shows access to the beach and shore at Buzzards Bay, which affects the value of our property. And our real estate agent has estimated that beach rights contribute about $20,000 to the value of each lot, which for 193 lots comes to nearly $4 million. Since 1980s, there have been increasing threats to this plan of roadways and access roads and common lands. So we're gun shy whenever we hear of a subdivision, of a new development going on in that area, because we've suffered some important losses since the 1980s. I must say, though, that the planned Salamini project appears to be superior, in our view, to the existing use of that land, which includes violations of setbacks and includes, through a matter of personal policies, hostility toward use of the right-of-way, which, by the way, is not an access, an easement for access across other people's property. It's a separate lot that's filed in the assessor's office, and which they consider a common way. We do have a couple of concerns. One of them is that we disagree with the applicant's position that they own the subdivision road that abuts their properties. Basically, I think you all know the arguments about lots that abut a private road. And I should say, by the way, that this road was accepted by the town, but the legal work was never completed. And so we suffer from serious consequences that the town has not done its job in completing the paperwork and accepting these roads. But anyway, that means that the road is basically, as it has been for 120 years, a private road. The applicant says that they own the road, and we disagree with that. In a 1949 deed from Bertha Keyes to Ralph Coate, which conveyed both of the lots, now owned by Mr. Salamini, the grantor expressly reserves for the benefit of her land like rights over said streets, ways and avenues, and said beaches. So she reserved the roadway from the conveyances that transfer the properties to the person who bought it in 1949. So we say that the roadway is actually owned by the Salt Pond area bird sanctuaries, who acquired interest in that from Langley Keyes several years ago. A second point that doesn't really have to do with this application, but we feel we have to voice the objection, and that has to do with the process of notifying abutters. The Town of Falmouth Assessor's Office has a policy that common lands, common ways, including private roads, are not are neither assessed nor identified as to owner, and therefore a common way or a road passing a proposed site of a project is the people with interest of access to that property are not notified. And that's not your fault, but again, once again, the town of Falmouth is, in our view, not doing their job in notifying appropriately people who have a vested interest in common ways. I think that basically makes the points that we wanted to make. I noted on this diagram of the Salamini property that the proposed use of the road, which we have no objection to, although it is, in our view, owned by Salt Pond area, and perhaps they should be consulted on this. We see a driveway shown there But what is not shown is a likely additional driveway that would service the other lot, 110, on the opposite side of the road, which you heard about several weeks ago. And that, it might have a bearing on this application, because where would the second driveway be located? I think I've taken enough of your time. Anyone have any questions?
Courtney?
Arthur, I appreciate the discussion of the legalities of this, but in truth, this is a conservation commission. We're not competent to decide on matters of ownership, rights, those sorts of things are properly addressed by the courts. And I would just make that comment. I mean, this is very informative.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the people,
Sure.
including the Keynes family and all that stuff, and I appreciate your concerns as an individual. However, it's beyond the competence of this commission to decide legal issues of this sort.
We recognize that, but the ownership of the road was brought up by the applicant, and that's why we responded to it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Michael Eater, Elgin Avenue. There's a couple things on this new plan that concern me. So what I've heard the applicant's representative saying here is that they recognize everyone in the neighborhood has a right to the road. They even said that everyone has a right to build out that road. So I'm a little confused with the structures and things they're putting on the road. How will, if we decide to build out the road, Beckles has also a paper road that connects there. There's been discussion about connecting those roads. How one will do that if they've put leach pits and other things in the road. The other thing that concerns me here is the trees are being planted right next to the common lot, which is a common neighborhood lot. That's how the assessor sees it and views it. We have accesses to it. Aren't those trees going to grow and impinge on that lot more and more? So what's going to be the process to cut them back so they don't go over that lot line? The other issue is I'd like to see conditions to require the access be preserved during construction. I mean, are they, you know, we use that, we go look at this beautiful vista there at the end, look at sunsets. Lots of neighbors walk this area. Are we going to be able to do that while they're building this house and tearing this other house down? Are there going to be conditions requiring the applicants acknowledge that we all have rights to that road, we all have rights to the common lot next to it? How are they going to preserve our rights during construction? And then I guess, you know, I don't want to talk about here, but I would like to get on the calendar for the commission to talk about these issues of what happens when lots, I mean, this has been coming up a lot. We've had a lot of issues where attorneys have changed deeds, attorneys have provided you with affidavits that were not found out to be correct. We should have a little bit of discussion. You know, I heard the statement that you are not in a position to decide property rights. I hardly agree that. That's what the assessor does. The assessor's job, if you look at their title, is to decide who owns land in the town of Falmouth. They, by definition, say when we view land as common land, we don't assess it. They've said their statement, the reason they're not assessing the unnumbered lot next to this is because they believe it is neighborhood common land. This is not the place for it, but I think we need to have this discussion, how we protect and preserve, you know, because the applicant's regulations say you go to the assessor to find out who owns the land. The assessor says, well, we don't list it because it's common owned by the association. So there's a little problem there. Thank you.
I have a comment. So I understand that's a concern,
Right?
but again, it has to do with property rights, and we have been given clear instruction from town council to confine our discussion and our decisions on our regulations and state regulations.
Okay, so my point here is how do you deal with the fact that someone's planting trees? I'm assuming these trees are going to grow and are right on the edge of the property line. They're going to then start impinging
we take that information from you, and we'll discuss that when we have deliberation, and we will make, depending on what the board decides, there'll be a finding that that's where they are, and there might be a special condition that they have to be moved.
Great, thank you.
Maureen, yes.
One quick comment. I did just scale those trees off as well, Tom, and the center of the caliper inch, the center of the tree, the trunk is only 3 to 4 feet off the property line. We know how big a cedar tree gets. So again, that would be, just, the life and death of a cedar tree. They live a long time and they get really big, so they will not be on that lot. And there is a thing called air rights, and you can cut them through conservation's permission, but if they are impeding anybody's access, they can be cut. So now, the trees that are supposed to be mitigation and improvement to the lot are now going to be placed in an area that could possibly, and will end up making them not growing to their full and mature height.
Therefore, we might suggest that they be moved.
Mark?
Well, I think we've got a real problem in that the ownership of that so-called Cape Cod Road. And according to our regulations on notice of intent, the owner has to, the applicant has to own the property on which he's doing work. And in particular, in our case, it's sort of a serious issue with this leach pit, which was to deal with the runoff from the road, which we were sort of anxious about having. And if that's not in this property, you either can't put it in at all, or you have to get approval. I don't have any idea what you have to do, but there's a problem with it. And I don't
Well, I
think we
can
can
point
proceed.
out on the
We don't
document
make that decision, this is the applicant. The applicant comes with it.
that was presented to you in number 9, says the grantor hereby expressly reserves for the benefit of her remaining land like rights over said streets. This point does not actually say that she retained the right in the street, just retained the rights in the street. And it is common law that lots sold on a private road owned to the center line, unless specifically the ownership is reserved. And this number 9 here does not reserve ownership of that road, it only reserves the rights over the road.
I hear that, but I thought we just heard from someone else that in
That's
fact
written right here.
they own the rights. What is?
You know what? This
Salt pound.
is, again, irrelevant. This is the plan that they're presenting to us. They're saying that they own the rights to there. We're not getting into a legal issue as to whether they do or don't. This is what they said, and we're making a decision on the plan that they gave us. If people don't choose not to, then they can hire a lawyer and say, we don't want this here.
But it's also always the right, or generally the right for an abutting lot owner to make improvements in the road. And I think Ms. McCain said that they don't mind that we make the improvements in the road.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, but it's not,
It's not, I know, it's not.
we have to
this
make a
isn't the
decision
forum.
on what you give us, and if what you tell us isn't true, I know you, I mean, I do believe, Tom, that you would not come here and
I would not.
deliberately not tell us the truth, although,
But that would be vetted out by zoning and
At what stage?
permit application. Building permit.
I mean, you also routinely, it's never mentioned, every time a house is built, there is some work done outside of the lot. Whether it's a town road or a private road, there's work done. And I don't see you ever requiring permission. We don't get the permission of the town if it's a town road. We don't get the permission of the homeowners association if it's a private road. We do that work within the roadway.
Yeah, you do.
When have you required it?
Not us. I thought you said it's not required.
No, I'm saying it's,
if somebody puts a fence in the town road, they have to get permission from DPW.
No, I'm talking about, we
62, 67
don't-
Nashua.
You're talking about
I'm
utilities?
talking about permission to go before you to, I mean, it is true, for a road, you have to go to the DPW to get a driveway opening permit. But that permission does not have to be written permission to prove to you that the
No,
homeowner has the right to come before you to get an order of
it's not
conditions.
us.
It's all,
Is what I'm saying. And if this was a town road, then you would have to go to the town to get a curb cut permit. But that's usually, somewhat after the fact, after we've been here.
So it sounds like the zoning department may be where you want to take your concern. Is it?
I'm just going to make a real quick point, and I don't like it, but a little history here. So the applicant said to you that those stairs have been there from '75, so they have might have a constructive easement for them. This road was taken by the town in 1947. The town has taken the position it's been a town road. The list of town roads still lists this as a town road with a note that it wasn't registered. The engineers took the opinion that there's legal history to say that a road that long ago was accepted, the rules have changed since then, it's a town road. We can provide you with that engineering documents.
Michael, we don't need that.
No,
This is what they're presenting to us. This is what we're making our decision. If you object to what they're doing on this, then you can deal with them legally. We are not going to make a decision on it.
here, it seems to me it's a little bit of a slippery slope. So if I come before you and say I want to build a town hall, you'll approve it. You won't question who owns it or anything, and you'll approve it. I mean, if I say I want to build my house into a town, I mean, again, you do have a requirement to identify the ownership of something. Those are always requirements. I served on a conscom. We were very strict about that. We had very different policies. Our town council's view was very different from this town council's view. I'm just making a point that it's not just that simple, and we don't have a problem with them creating an access in the road, but they're putting leach pits and stuff. The applicant has said to you in a hearing that anyone who wants to, of us who have rights to that road, could build it out. I mean, how is that going to work if we decide to build out this road and there's leach pits and stuff in the middle of it? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either.
My question, Michael, is Tom's position or the applicant's position is they own the road. The Sippo-Wisset Homeowners Association's position is that the Salt Pond Area Bird Sanctuary owns the road.
That's not correct. The question.
Yes,
We submit that the roadways of the Sippo-Wisset subdivision
the
were reached.
The road was taken by town in 1947.
Well, what about number 10?
Well, that's not, Arthur's writing that not as the Sippo-Wisset Association, he's writing that as his opinion. But the point, again, I think this is why we need to have a sort of a discussion, that we don't have always these problems. The town still shows it as a town road. The engineer is of the opinion, they did a paper in 2007.
And our town council is an opinion that this is a private road, that the information.
And I spoke to the assessor just a couple weeks ago, and they said that has not been conveyed to them, and they still take the position it's a town road. So, again, if you say we never will get involved in private property rights, then that means anyone.
Who in the assessor's office did you
That's not
speak to?
necessarily true, but we
Trish
don't
Fabuli.
attempt to make a definitive decision on that because we don't have the expertise for that.
no.
It's not in our purview.
Right. Well, that's why I think you should defer to the assessor. You should be, when the applicant comes before you and says, I want to build here, you should say, who does the assessor say owns that land? Because that's what their expertise, that's
His
their
testimony
responsibility.
is
Say
that
about
his
the zoning
applicant
department,
owns the land. He's allowed to do that. We know if somebody comes and wants to build something in town hall parking lot, we know that they don't own that. They have no documentation that they ever owned that.
Town council gave this board an opinion that that the Cape Cod Road in this area was a private road when we had the hearing for the house across the street.
If
We
it's-
got an email from town council. I can go find it for you if you'd like, but it's in the file for the adjacent property.
Okay, I mean, I have an email from the assessor.
But if it wasn't recorded,
dated
it's
October
doesn't
11th,
matter.
where she says the issue of the ownership of the road is still unclear. So I don't know. I just.
And you know for a fact
You
that
didn't
I
tell us that.
presented
You told
evidence
her-
from town
you told us
council at the
She said it was
last
a
meeting.
private, a
We've got
public
two,
road.
yeah.
You're
She
saying
said-
she said it was unclear.
She
That's-
said,
that's
she said,
different.
she said she has not yet gotten an update from town council regarding the status of the road. She's still listed as a town road.
Well,
Madam Chair.
Okay, I don't think this is the, I don't mean to have this discussion here. The point I'm saying, the applicant has said to you, we all
Madam
have
Chair.
rights to the road, we all have rights to build out that road. He's asking for permission to put structures in the road. How is that consistent? I just don't understand that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Courtney.
You know, I made the comment, I'll make it again, we're not competent to make decisions of this sort. We're Conservation Commission. Your group has come in front of this commission a number of times regarding land ownership issues with assorted properties. And back when Peter was on the commission, I think we heard things like this. Now, my suggestion is that you go to the appropriate course of action. Go to the courts and get a determination on this ownership issue and settle it amongst your association. I mean, I think the problem arose because when the original people who subdivided it didn't draw it the way normally associations are drawn in the last 20 years. That's where the issue really comes from. But it's up to you guys to go back and sort this out so we don't need to be burdened with it.
Well, we can't be doing
Madam Chair, I just have one point of order
Period.
for the
Thank
butters.
you. You raised the issue. I will point out
Okay,
that in our neighborhood
He hasn't been-
association, there was an
Wait a
example.
second, you
Let's
haven't
close the
been,
hearing.
you haven't been recognized by the chair.
Oh, can I be recognized quickly?
Yes.
Call
So I
the question.
wanted to
But-
give you a little history, just to remind you that in another situation where there was building happening on the neighborhood beach, which the town shows, that's owned by Salt Pond and that thing, you asked the applicant's attorney to provide you with affidavits, permission. They provided you with affidavits saying they were of ownership. That was shown to be false affidavits. We're in a sort of a no-win situation because when we say we know someone doesn't own something, and I'm not saying this applicant is doing something in this situation, but it's a no-win. And you know how expensive it is to go to court and fight people who are spending millions of dollars building property? It's not realistic.
You're asking us to make that call.
No, I'm asking you to
He's
say.
It's
saying
up
that
to you
they own
guys,
the
This
not
is
us.
what keeps lawyers in business.
That's all right.
There's a good attorney back there. Why don't you talk to him?
With affidavits.
Isn't it the case that the building department won't allow us to
Yeah,
go
so
forward?
first of all, if I may say,
Yes, you may.
the applicant is saying they own the property. If you don't believe that, so be it. You prove it otherwise, or your group, if you will. It's not up to us.
Prove it to who?
Second, whoever you feel needs to know. Secondly, when they go to apply for permitting, it's gonna go through zoning. So if the town has any issue with that, being in a road layout, public or private, that's where it would be vetted. That isn't up to this board.
You know, again, I respectfully disagree. I mean, I know, I was on the Conservation Commission, I know the requirement to show ownership, so we're in
like to call
different
the
opinions
question.
there.
One more thing. Kevin has something to say.
I would just like to point out to you, sir, we've tried to tell you our purview has to do with the conservation, okay? As far as we're concerned, we have received something, I don't know about the assessor, I don't know about anybody else. We have received communication from the town council, so it's a private road. In the case of a private road, I don't have much of a history here, but I would assume that we would say that property owner owns out to the middle of the roadway. And in this case, the property owner owns property on both sides of the roadway. Therefore, as far as we are concerned, we have been told by town council that the applicant is entitled to build in this area.
I haven't even told any of those things, okay?
Well, we have an opinion from town council. I really don't know what else we're supposed to do about it. This is the last
Call
comment.
the question, please.
get Mary Funoff.
I would just ask, does the Conservation Commission have any access to a legal resource such as the town council?
Yes,
Yes,
and we've already
We've
asked
already
him.
had it.
We've gotten his opinion on this.
Would you ask town council about the 1949 deed from Bertha Keys to Ralph Coate? Just ask him what that means. That's all.
All right, request has been heard.
Mayor, I just have a question. Who owns this? We don't know.
Okay, let's not worry about that. Let's take the vote.
Yes,
Okay, take the
okay,
vote.
we're going to take the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed, unanimous, so moved.
Ask Frank to,
Salt Pond did it?
No.
that's what I was trying to say.
Okay,
Katie's already
Next
seen
up.
this plan.
But they were never
second week in a row, our expectations
but
and
then I
hopes have
sent
been
her the
completely
plan.
dashed.
I asked her specifically to look at the driveway issue.
Okay.
Legally, they own it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know
Request to
why.
extend the existing order of conditions. John Daigle, 27 Davis Neck Road, East Falmouth, Massachusetts, DEP number 25-3710.
Apparently I'm not getting.
Requesting a one-year extension. Expiration is December 1, 2017.
Good evening, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I represent the applicant. I have a one-page handout. Could I give it to you?
Of course.
Are you hesitant at this point? We thought we'd be out of here at 20 after.
Has the work begun?
I'm going to be talking about property rights.
Excellent.
And I'm gonna be talking about timing.
Yeah.
Was that-
Yeah, this is, you're at a disadvantage here, you realize that?
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
want me to take the
I
floor
think that
on these?
I can be brief, and I think if the board hears me out, I'm hopeful that the board will grant a one-year extension. So let me begin. I represent John Daigle, who's sitting here with me in the audience. In 2010, Mr. Daigle purchased the property at 27 Davis Neck Road. One of the things that attracted him to the property, if you look at this Chapter 91 license plan, is the boat basin, which is on the waterfront side of the property. The lot is shown as Lot 26 on this land court plan, and I highlighted in black ink the property boundaries of Mr. Daigle's property. At the time that he purchased the property, the boat basin was in a state of disrepair, and so what Mr. Daigle did was he promptly hired BSS Design to prepare plans and a notice of intent for repair of the boat basin. And that was done, and in 2010, December 1st, 2010, the Conservation Commission issued an order of conditions granting permission to essentially renovate, rebuild the boat basin, and to also conduct some maintenance dredging in the boat basin and the channel. In order to do the dredging and the boat basin work, Mr. Daigle needs a Chapter 91 license. And in order to have a Chapter 91 license, one must be the owner of the property to apply or have a letter of permission from the owner of the property. And that's where the problems began. If you look at the handout that I gave you, the boat basin, as I said, extends onto another person's property. The lot that is primarily consisting of the waterway is actually Lot 24. If you look up to the very top of the channel, there's a little reference that says Lot 24. And that lot is actually owned by Mr. Daigle's neighbor to the north, which is labeled by Lot 25, Lorraine Fox. So in order to get the Chapter 91 license, Mr. Daigle then approached the neighbor and offered to purchase the land. That then brought about a lengthy negotiation, because if you also look at what's on Lot 24 is another dock to the, west, to the west, down on the paper. The negotiations became further complicated by the fact that in the chain of title to Lot 24, Lot 25, and Lot 26, there's a document that was not recorded properly by one of the attorneys involved. And that created a misunderstanding of the parties, and I won't get into the weeds on this, but one party thought that they had the right to do something, and the other party thought that they did not, and they don't, because the document was not properly recorded. But what I just told you in about a minute or two took the parties a couple of years to figure out and come to the understanding. Ultimately, when that was sorted out, an agreement was able to be reached on price, and last year in May 2016, Mr. Daigle reached an agreement to purchase the land. That then started the traditional closing process, and when the lawyers looked at the title, another problem came up. There's a title problem with Lot 24, which then kiboshed the closing, and it didn't happen. But because Mr. Daigle very much wants to go forward with this project, he went back to the proverbial negotiating table with the neighbors, and he has in fact reached an agreement with them that will allow him to file for the Chapter 91 license.
Okay. I
So it's
think
taken quite a long time.
we have the picture. That's why work hasn't started. Okay. Could I have a motion? Or Jen, do you have anything on this? You want to say anything about it?
A one-year recommendation.
I
Yeah.
move a 1-year extension of this
Second.
order.
1 second, though. You're now able to apply for the Chapter 91. You have not obtained the Chapter 91.
Correct.
How long does you think it's going to take you to receive the Chapter 91?
Well, that's a very good question because DEP has been taking longer than they used to issue these things.
Let me ask you another question. Are we going to see you back here next November?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can tell you is that an agreement has been reached with the neighbor. That was the holdup. The Chapter 91 license, Jeff Ryther has all the work done. It's ready to go. We're going to move forward as expeditiously as possible.
Maybe
You
it's
have
a little
this-
started then.
You have this in writing, this agreement with the neighbor?
Well, Mr. Daigle's here. Is it in writing?
It is in writing? Okay.
Well,
1 year for right now, Brian, and Mr. Daigle, try to get this dredged.
yeah, I think this is not the time for us to worry
Yeah.
about that. A year from now is the time for us to worry
Yeah.
about that, I would say.
I would agree, and
I would do 1 year for
Yeah,
right
I
now,
think
Madam
we
Chairman.
can just take a vote.
okay.
There's a motion and a second on
There's
the
a
table.
motion, okay. Shall we approve the motion for a 1-year extension? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank
Good
you very
luck.
much.
Thank you, Brian. Good luck, Mr. Daigle.
But that was a fascinating story. That was worth your 5 minutes.
And my show and tell for the evening was that's my brother.
Oh!
Good night, Maria.
So,
This
thank
is
you.
property night at the commission, right?
Yep.
What a nightmare for you,
You should have told us,
to have to come in and talk about property rights.
to us of all people.
We have to go back to
Thank
the
you.
Act of 1647.
We haven't heard that for a long time.
Okay, moving right along.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Martin Levin, 257 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, Mass, DEP number 25-4070. Also a request for a 1-year extension. Current order is expiring December 22nd.
You can take them both simultaneously.
Okay,
Madam Chairman.
so the other one that will be voted along with it is Martin Levin, 259 Shorewood Drive, DEP 25-4071.
They're asking for the 1-year extension. They will be coming into compliance soon, and they just want to make sure that if the plantings aren't satisfactory to the Conservation Commission, which is kind of scary to me, that they have the time to fix it before the order expires. So I would grant the
I
1
have a
year.
question.
Sure.
When they say not satisfactory.
That's
have they
why-
been- How long have they been in, the planting?
That I'm not sure. We have
I
not
mean,
received.
is it a question of them surviving, or is it a question of them not, barely, just having been put in yesterday?
I'm not really sure. I haven't had the certificate of certificate of compliance requested yet. If you remember, these are two abutting properties north of the boulders on Shorewood. Is it north? Yeah, north of the boulders on Shorewood. And Wilkinson, I believe it was Wilkinson Design, did the restoration of the two properties,
Oh,
which
yeah.
included that boardwalk just to the marsh, and you remember the property in the dune, yeah. So it's those two properties, so they will be requesting a certificate of compliance soon.
I make a
Okay.
motion that we grant this 1-year extension for each of those properties.
Second.
Any other comment? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous, so moved. All right. Vote order of conditions, 59 Charles River Road, Milligan.
This is the dock. Matt Costa's favorite dock project ever.
Ever?
The one,
Oh, I'm
we already
sorry.
asked him to increase
Yeah,
the size of
hang on,
the
Madam Chairman.
Yeah, that is
The
kind of
quorum for this is
noteworthy.
everybody. Except for Betsy. Nope, Betsy's there.
Oh, I'm
Bet-
on it.
No, you were, I just saw that you were twice. This is the one you were
yeah.
written down
Oh,
twice.
so I get to vote twice on this one.
Yeah.
Cancel each other out.
I don't think there was any special
Yes, no.
conditions that I wanted to see on this.
No, I don't even have one piece of red ink.
No,
Wow, that's the
There
first.
was just a letter from the harbor master. wasn't
Oh,
That's
that's
right.
right, you're
That's right.
right,
For the
Kevin.
new-
Good
very good
call,
memory.
Kevin. Approve and then special condition, new approval by harbor. Okay.
that's right.
Move to accept this
Put the
discussion.
mooring field
Second.
on. All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, unanimous, so moved. Okay, discussion of our fee recommendation. This is going to the selectmen.
Yeah, so every year, the selectmen ask all of the town departments and boards to look at the fees to see if you wanted to adjust them. You haven't adjusted, the Conservation Commission hasn't adjusted the fees in a few years. So the staff went through, we compared our fee schedule to the towns of Plymouth, Sandwich, Barnstable, Yarmouth, Brewster, Mashpee, Wellfleet, Dennis, and Wareham. And we took this nice chart, we went through it, and we kind of compared the fees. And what we determined was that, in general, our fees are in line with the other towns. There are a few adjustments that can be made. I met with Mary and Jamie as the chair and vice chair to discuss it. So what the staff recommended, is going to recommend, is that under our bylaw, we increase our fee for a notice of intent for the construction, and that includes the raise and rebuild of a single-family home, to $200. We'll leave it to be $100 for additions and pools and things like that. But if they're gonna raise and rebuild, that we raise that to $200, and that will put us in line with Yarmouth, Brewster, Barnstable, Sandwich is $565, it's $400 for a simple notice of intent, and Plymouth is $500. So,
Yeah, why don't
for
you
a single-family home.
just
so.
show them Courtney's matrix? All those towns were compared for all those categories of fees, so it's a
I
pretty
mean,
thorough
we could
process.
keep it was just one fee out of many of our fees that I noticed we may want to increase to that $200 for the raise and, so if you have a raise and rebuild like we just did on 58 Cape Codder, that would be a $200 fee as opposed to a $100 fee.
And a new construction.
A new construction.
Would be 200.
But if it's an addition, a deck, a
right,
patio, a
would be
pool,
100.
Courtney, 1 second. The next fee that we felt we may want to revise is you have a revised plan fee. So Tom came in, bless you, with a revised plan for 58 Cape Codder. I'm gonna use that as our example tonight. When they submitted that revised plan to the office, they were required to submit a check for $50. Some towns call it a continuance fee, we call it a revised plan fee. We right now have a $50 revised plan fee. The only other town we saw that had that listed was the town of Mashpee. They had one for $100 if the commission, and I actually like this, if the commission deems that the continuance is necessary because of insufficient information or unpreparedness on the part of the applicant. I particularly like that, but I still think we should probably just call it our revised plan fee. And I think that after consulting with Mary and Jamie, we thought $75 would be good. to raise that.
Yeah, it represents additional
It just
staff work and
represents,
sometimes additional work for all of
yeah,
us.
for all of you. And the only other fee that I would like to add to your fee schedule is something we're gonna call the reissuance of a permit fee. And a lot of times, the original order of conditions prior to being recorded is either misplaced by the applicant or the engineer, or there's a discrepancy between the parties and one of the parties will not release the original to the other party. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to go through this quickly. So what has to happen is Courtney has to reissue the permit, and it has to be taken upstairs and get true and attested by the clerk's office in order for the registry of deeds to be able to record that. And that takes some time. And other towns actually charge for that service.
I think this kind of fee exists for almost any legal document.
Yeah,
you
so
need a
I'm
copy
thinking
of,
that
so-
we will add a category for reissuance of a permit to a $25 fee.
That's
And
cheap.
out of that, all the rest of them, I would recommend leaving the same because they're pretty much in line with all the other
And you're
towns.
taking one out?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's additional site visit, and we never charge that.
You know,
So
that
don't
was the
even
one
have it
that,
on the book.
What?
how much time do you guys spend when you go out there?
You know what, it
Like,
would,
with
it
Marie, you're out
actually,
there 100
honestly, it would take us more time to actually track the additional site visits that we do, since we
Okay.
run around town and we just hit them as we're in
Okay.
certain areas of town.
As long as you guys are okay with
We're
it.
fine with it.
yeah.
But
I mean,
think-
some towns charge a consultation fee. I don't charge people to come in and talk to me. I just find that ridiculous. That's why I'm
Here, exactly.
So I'm pretty comfortable with the reissuance of the permit fee, raising the revised plan fee, and removing the additional site visit fee.
I'm comfortable with all of these. My only
Yeah.
suggestion would be to edit the last sentence a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Before the listing of the fees, to say that we recommend increasing 2 fees, adding a fee category, and deleting 1 fee,
Okay.
as follows.
Sorry, and honestly, I did send this upstairs, and
Okay,
then I
fine.
realized I had to have you vote them. I know, don't shake your head at me. And I was just trying to get paper off my desk, and then, so I called upstairs and said, hold it, they haven't voted yet.
Well, I'll put a motion on the table to accept this as discussed.
On this, you know, I hear loud and clear what you're saying, Jen, about the additional site visit fee. And, you know, it does create a headache for you. But there are circumstances where a client wants you to go out and make a special trip, and I think you should leave this in there, and it gives you the discretion to charge it, and it also gives some value to your services. So I wouldn't take it out. Use your discretion, but I wouldn't take it out, because there are circumstances where you're being hauled out there to, you know, being taken away from your
That's
work,
fine, I mean,
and time is money.
we'll leave it in if you want to just have the option of charging it.
Yeah,
That's
I just
fine.
say, you may never charge them, but at least you have the option, given us,
Oh,
if
bad
a certain
It's not a bad
situation-
idea.
As long
Yeah,
as-
it's not a bad idea.
I mean,
Okay.
if it's up to discretion of staff. then,
Yeah, we'll leave it in.
you know, If
It's
nothing
just-
else, they won't just keep calling every day.
Right, then it
Come on
doesn't
again,
become
come on again.
abusive, yeah.
Right, and, well, yeah, on the other hand,
I
well,
think
I
that's
don't
a
know.
slippery slope.
Yeah,
I think
somebody
that
could
puts you in an
complain who's
uncomfortable.
PIA.
I
always
think that
getting
puts you in a
charged.
position of people saying you
As
charge
long as
me, but
it's-
you didn't charge
As long as
her.
it's annotated, so it's clear. It's your the board's
Yeah, but-
discretion whether
Well,
or
we're not gonna be doing
No, no.
fees.
We're not gonna-
I don't
No,
think,
no, I'm
no,
saying.
but I don't think it's fair
It's
for
a-
her to be in a position, for me to come in and say, hey, you charged me, but you didn't charge her,
Right.
you didn't charge him.
I can
Those
honestly
guys
say a
talk
lot
to
of
each other
times we'll
all
be.
the time.
I can honestly say a lot of times we're called out to a site because, like, for example, I'm going out on a site with one of the engineers tomorrow. He hasn't filed yet because he's confused at what the resource area is.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna charge them for that site visit. Again, I feel that that's what my
that's part
job
of the
is
NOI.
to do,
So
is
that it comes
to
into us
help
and it's clear.
Yeah.
applicants. We go out on sites all the time to help people look at things and talk them through, and we don't
encourage
charge.
Cooperation, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't charge the consultation fee. I think this went in as a way to charge for us going back out to a site after a hearing when, you know, the trees weren't put on the plan, or they're gonna do something different, or they're changing the plan. I think that's why it was put in. I'll leave it in, and then we'll revisit
But I
it.
mean, we could see that
Puts you in an
as covered by the
uncomfortable position.
revised.
I don't
plan.
agree.
Please. No, it's a revised plan fee
Yeah.
is part of it.
Right.
That's part of,
If
that's
they-
part of the work that goes into a revised plan. She might have to go out and check where the trees are. I don't think you should be in a position to have two people come in and say, how come she got, or how come I got charged and she didn't?
Right.
Because I don't like you.
I agree with that.
Well, there are also times, and I'll give this as an example, there are also times where Mark and I have been called out to the same site repeatedly, to the point where I told Mark he is not allowed to go back out to that site because they just, whatever reason, the applicant, the representatives just couldn't pull it together. So, I mean, there are issues where, you know, we're constantly being hauled out to the same site, and I can think of an enforcement one right now where we went out to the same enforcement site and had to meet with multiple contractors because they were just going through contractors, and they would hire contractors to meet with us, and then we would meet with this particular contractor, and then they didn't like the price that the contractor gave them, and we'd have to go out and meet with a new contractor, and that became an issue. So in that respect, you know, there are those times.
How about
They're
you put
very
at the
few and far
discretion
between.
of staff?
Yeah, I understand,
But
but
that's what we
what
were saying,
Betsy
but
and
that-
I are saying is that she could, you know, get in an uncomfortable
Yeah.
position with the
Somebody will think
engineers.
she's
a good girl.
Yeah, that's true. But it's, I mean, it's a legal matter. I'm not saying she can't
You know
stand
what,
up for herself.
we really don't do with anything with it now. If you just want to leave it in and just hang on to it as you can. It doesn't matter to me.
If you don't charge it, even for these people that call you out all the time, let's just eliminate it.
Yeah.
Because then it
Okay.
eliminates any problems, and that's what the.
You can always put it back
That's
in.
what the motion is on the table.
You can always put it back in.
Right, and I suspect that a case like you just described doesn't come up all that often.
No, it doesn't.
So there's motion on the table in a second.
Yes.
We don't have a second.
Oh,
I did, I seconded it.
Second.
What's the motion?
The motion is to accept it as it has been presented to us.
With the,
And you can vote no if you don't like
I will.
And how is
There's no
that,
change.
and how is the additional site visit fee resolved?
We're gonna
Leaving
delete it.
it
We're
alone?
leaving it as it was recommended to
Oh,
us.
okay.
We're deleting it.
Got it. All right, so all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Unanimous? Oh, I'm sorry,
Almost
I'm sorry.
unanimous.
Almost.
Fine.
I'm opposed.
That's fine.
If we want to reconsider as an amendment, and I'll vote on that one fee, the rest of them I'm fine with.
No,
That's fine.
no, you
just
had
one
your
thing.
chance, you said no, that's fine.
Really?
That's fine.
No, that's fine.
We're not
I-
deadlocked or
no,
anything.
I get the point, Courtney. One quick thing I do want to mention, and it's kind of came up after your agenda was posted. For those of you that aren't aware of it, and some of you are, there was a spill of approximately 375 gallons, we got that total today, of mineral oil on Sippawisset Road. It happened just south of Beckles Road on a slope. The transformer pole,
Three big transformers went down. and-
yeah, it came down.
The stuff ran down.
It-
Or their
The mineral
responsibility, but not
oil-
their fault.
Down where the
Is it a
17
storm
miles
thing?
an hour.
Yeah,
They
it
were
came down the road, which was a very steep slope, hit the catch basin, and discharged into the salt pond south of Woodneck Beach. Clean Harbors has been on site. Eversource has hired an LSP to deal with the cleanup. DEP has been on site. So I just want to make the board aware that your staff has been on site. We spent over an hour on the site with the LSP yesterday and the Clean Harbor guys going over how they're going to clean this up and remediate for it. I spoke with DEP yesterday and talked to them because I didn't know how to deal with this. I called our wetlands guys. They went and talked to their emergency response guys, which apparently were there while we were all at the restoration on Monday. And They have a plan to clean it up. You will be seeing an emergency certificate from Ty and Bond on, for Eversource on this project. DEP says if they clean it up within 30 days, they're not required to file a notice of intent. So, right now, they were raking up the leaf litter and kind of collecting it all with a vacuum truck. Mark was out there today. You can still really smell the mineral oil. So now they're going to be doing some testing. They were putting a boat out into the open water to make sure there was no sheen on the pond. And that's where we are right now.
Very stressed
Yeah,
pond anyway.
They also cleaned out that catch basin at the bottom.
Yeah.
Mile
They will
17.
also
Bottom of
be,
the hill
they're
there on
also
the
going
curve.
to,
Mile 17?
yeah, they're
Yeah,
also
mile
going.
17. And then the other thing is that there were no, which is a good thing, there were no PCBs mixed in with the mineral
No,
oil.
there isn't. And they're also going to be removing all of the soil and vegetation on the shoulders of Sipawissa Road from where the pole was down to the catch basin area and putting new loam and putting some seed mats down to revegetate the shoulders. So,
Terrible time.
Their responsibility, and they have to complete it within a month, and that's going to be reviewed, I assume. and-
yeah, and they have to complete it within a month or they're gonna have to file with us. We did receive, or the town received the urgent, it's called urgent legal matter prompt action necessary, and it is a, directive from DEP that Eversource is required to clean this up and are responsible for the cleanup for this.
Right, I guess what I'm being very unclear in asking is, DEP will, render an opinion as to whether they've met that. Okay.
Yeah, they will, and I will be talking with DEP, and I've already spoken with the emergency response guy, and he was very helpful and said that if we have any questions or concerns, we can give him a call.
Great.
I just had one question, only because of the time of year, nothing's gonna grow.
They're required to remove the soils.
Right,
So
so,
we're having them put the seed mats down. It was either that or have them put straw wattles down, would check kind of, almost like check dams, because
Yeah.
if they put the loam down and hydroseed it,
it'll be gone.
it's gonna just wash right out in the
Right, okay,
rainstorm.
good.
So
So-
they've actually decided to put pin the seed mats.
mat, good.
Yeah,
So like a
Yeah.
wall.
It's.
because it's like 1,000 feet of it. I mean, it comes,
I mean, if they
Yeah,
put
it's-
some winter rye even on it now,
It-
it'll.
it's really far up.
I know.
And it just came shooting down that slope and hit that catch basin and went right into the marsh.
The transformers are just south of Clues Drive, which is right at the very peak of the hill. And then it went all the way down.
Of
Almost
course it did.
2/10 of a
Yeah, of
mile.
course it did.
About 2/10 of a mile down that hill.
Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All right, that's unanimous, thank you.
I will have Frank look into that issue out in Keys, because it comes up often.